Good morning. If everybody could please find seats. You can fill up, it's easier to hit you with spitballs if you're up front. So feel free. Cheaper seats are up front? I had a professor in law school that unfortunately would spray when he spoke. So we would always call the front seats the splash zone. If you've ever been to SeaWorld, it's kind of like with Shamu, but they're okay, they're up here. But I'd like to welcome you all here, and we're going to ask a favor of you. If you've got a cell phone, please, I ask you not to turn it off. Do not turn them off, because my club does a fundraiser that if it goes off, I keep it. We then raffle them back off to you. You won't believe how much people will pay for some of their cell phones.
Or pay to aggravate somebody on the price.
Well, if you have a friend sitting next to you, dial their cell phone now. Okay. My name is Bob Libben. I am your moderator today. And my job here is to introduce these two young ladies, gentlemen, couples, whatever you want to call them, lions, off to my right in front of you. They're a dynamic couple. I could read you their bio. They sent me a wonderful bio, but I'm a lawyer. I don't read anything. But I'm going to give you some ABCs about them. We could talk about their awards. We could talk about all the times that they've done presentations. We could talk about all the things that they've done, their expertise. They've been doing these for 40 years. About their 8 grandchildren, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to do ABCs. My parents, growing up, were school teachers. So I'm going to do ABCs and move my way down. So I'll start off by saying ABC. They've always been Canadian. They're dedicated, experienced, fun, great. And at this time, here are your presenters.
Thank you, Bob. That was probably the best introduction we've had today. I'm glad you didn't get to say it, because I would have had to correct him. He would have said Z, and I would have had to correct him and say it's Z. Welcome to the session. Zone meetings. How many of you have been to a zone meeting? Good. How many of you have been to a zone meeting that may have just been a little bit better than it was? There's room for improvement with a lot of zone meetings. Between us, Nancy and I have been to over 150 zone meetings in our years of Lionism, and we've seen some really good ones. And we've seen some that maybe were not quite as good. And based on that experience, we're going to share some ideas for improving zone meetings. And we'll also get some ideas from you. What we plan to cover today will be the purposes or the benefits of a zone meeting, when they should be held, and how many to hold. Sometimes there's confusion that who is entitled, or who can, or who should attend a zone meeting. We'll cover the agenda for a zone meeting, some of the topics that an agenda should include. One of the weak points of zone meetings that we have observed is the invitation that comes from the zone chair to the clubs. And we're going to spend some time on talking about the meeting notice. Nancy will give you some ideas for improving zone meetings, and will provide some pointers on conducting a zone meeting. She will also discuss post-meeting actions that should be done, and will provide you with lots of references so that you can get additional information. So right off the bat, I'm going to put you to work, and Director Bob, of course. So I'm going to ask you what you have found to be a benefit or a purpose, what you think the reason that we should have a zone meeting is. So what is the purpose of a zone meeting? Put up your hand, use the mic if you would, because we are being recorded, and Bob will come rushing around. So he's at the front now, so I'd like someone from the back next.
Okay, one of the big reasons for the zone meeting is to get information about what the clubs are doing so that that can be brought up to the district governor team.
Exactly. The other name for a zone meeting is the District Governor's Advisory Meeting. Absolutely, good point. What other reason? What's a benefit?
To get the clubs to work on projects together.
To get clubs working together on projects, a zone project, absolutely.
To meet other Lions from your zone.
To meet other Lions, new Lions, or renew old friendships.
To help clubs see that there's a bigger picture besides just their club and the immediate surrounding area.
Good stuff. We'll do a couple more. We'll go from the back to the front. Good stuff.
For clubs to share between each other, different clubs, so you know what other clubs are doing within your zone?
To know what other clubs are doing in your zone, absolutely.
To get input for the cabinet meeting, so the district governor can realize what the clubs want.
Wow, good stuff, good stuff. Thank you for your input. And again, we could probably spend the first half hour talking about that, but we have a lot to cover, so we'll just carry on. Here are some of the reasons that Nancy and I thought of. A forum for discussion. It's an excellent opportunity. It's a small gathering, isn't it? Much smaller than a cabinet meeting or a convention. So it's a nice small gathering where you can actually discuss things as a small group. An exchange of ideas. I know I have picked up great ideas on fundraising, on service projects, great ideas on recruitment, membership recruitment, all from listening to people talk at a zone meeting. As was mentioned, it's an opportunity for club members to learn what is going on at the district, the multiple district, or even international level. And this, of course, is a two-way street because it's an opportunity for the zone chair and the other district officers to learn what is going on at the club level. Zone meetings are a great opportunity for district chairs to give their pitch to the clubs. Perfect opportunity. I've been the Centennial Chair for a couple of years in my district, and I've used the zone meetings to hand out a lot of information on the Centennial. You may have heard that people join Lions to help their community, but they remain as Lions because of the friendships that they develop. So the zone meeting is a social event, and that was mentioned earlier, that it's a great opportunity to meet new Lions and renew friendships. Zone meetings are a perfect opportunity to distribute awards. The club Centennial banner patches. What a great place to distribute them. Club Excellence Awards. It's also a good time to distribute literature, because you're the club president, the club secretary there, and as I mentioned, all the Centennial literature that I handed out, virtually all of it was done at zone meetings. These, and the ones that you mentioned, thank you, are some of the very important reasons why we should have zone meetings. There was one other thing when we're talking about this that I want to point out. And if we were to get together as a group and say, write a mission statement for a zone meeting, If we had an all-day workshop, we could do that now. But I'm sure we would come up with something pretty simple, and it would simply be to strengthen and support the Lions clubs in the zone. To strengthen and support the Lions clubs in the zone. That's really what the focus of a zone meeting should be. The zone meeting is not for or not about the zone chair. The zone meeting is not for or about the district officers. The zone meeting is for and about the clubs in that zone. So that's going to be our mission statement. To strengthen and support the Lions clubs in the zone. This must be the focus when the zone chair, when he or she are preparing their agenda to strengthen and support the Lions clubs in the zone. Now the next question we have to answer is, how many zone meetings should there be? Weekly? I don't think so. Monthly? I don't think so. One a year? Probably not enough. Lions Clubs International suggests that there be 3 minimum and possibly 4 zone meetings each year. The first within 90 days of the International Convention. So this means, since our conventions are usually in June, July, the first zone meeting is going to have to be in September or early October. And of course, that's when you want to get things rolling. You can't wait till November to start planning some of the zone projects that was mentioned earlier. We've got to get these things rolling early in the Lions year. So the first zone meeting should be September or early October. The second held in November. The third in February or March. And then the fourth optional zone meeting held in April or May, about a month before the multiple district convention. Zone chairs have to be very careful when they're selecting the date to hold these meetings. We're going to share some ideas for selecting the date. Look for months with 5 weeks in them. So look at your year and look for the months that have 5 weeks. As we know, most clubs meet during the first and third or second and fourth weekday of the month. So if we get a month with 5 weeks, what a tremendous time to have a zone meeting. I know there are a few clubs that meet on the second and last Tuesday of the month. But generally speaking, they are very few and far between. We used to have one in the district, but they found it confusing because the Lions were used to going the second and the fourth, and all of a sudden there was a 5th Tuesday in the month, and nobody would show up. Or they'd all be there on the 4th. So they changed back. But these months with 5 weeks are really ideal to have a zone meeting because there are no other club meetings taking place. On the screen, October 30, November 29 and 30 are ideal nights for you to conduct your zone meeting. Now you probably wouldn't want to have one on October 31st, which of course brings up another valid point. Do not schedule zone meetings for holiday evenings. Another thing to do when planning the night for your zone meeting is to prepare a calendar of the club meeting nights in your zone. And here's how to do it. So you prepare a calendar. Club A and B meet on the first and third Mondays. Club C meets on the second and fourth Monday. Club D the first and third Tuesday, and so on. So you have a calendar of the meeting nights of the clubs that are in your zone. You can see the second and fourth Tuesday or the first and third Wednesday are ideal nights to be having a zone meeting. I realize some zone chairs like to have a zone meeting held with a regular club meeting. And this has the advantage that the zone chair doesn't have to worry about a venue, about a caterer. And you're going to get a pretty good turnout from the host club anyway. But it also has some serious disadvantages. How much club business can we conduct that night? We don't want to go to a zone meeting and listen to the Podunk Lions Club spend 45 minutes conducting business, do we? It's a zone meeting. Who gets the money from the tail twister? Who gets the money from the 50-50 draw? So we have to make sure that if you are holding a meeting in conjunction with a club, that you're very clear as to who's in charge, when's in charge, what business, when, money, who collects for people that don't show, etc., etc. So be very careful when you are holding joint meetings. There is one more recommendation when it comes to holding zone meetings. And that recommendation from LCI is that zone meetings be held within 2 weeks following the cabinet meetings. Man, we got a lot of requirements to put together when we're picking a zone meeting night, haven't we? But try to fit as many of those in as you can. Because picking the right night is critical to having a successful meeting night. Now the question comes up, who should attend a zone meeting? I've heard Lions say, I can't go. I'm not a president or a secretary. And there are some clubs that actually perpetuate that myth that only the club secretary or president should be at a zone meeting. But the zone meeting should be open to every Lion in that zone. We call it the district governor advisory meeting, so by cracky, the district governor or one of the vice district governors better be there. I can't advise them if they're not present. Presidents and secretaries, of course, at the top, because they are expected to be there. If your club or your district uses region chairs, then of course the region chair should be there. And some of the district chairs may wish to come and promote Centennial or Hearing or any of your other projects. Zone meetings are a tremendous time to take new Lions and prospective Lions out. A prospective Lion has been out to your club and heard what your club does. But imagine going to a zone meeting and hearing what all the clubs in that zone do. All of a sudden they realize that they're not just a city limits Lion, that there's a lot of things going on that the Lions are doing. And it might just be enough to bring them in to our fold. New members, great time. As a matter of fact, I think on the mentoring program, that's one of the requirements, is that they attend a zone meeting. We have a Lions family. So, Lioness and Leos should be part of our zone meetings. In our district, the Lioness and the Leo clubs are encouraged to attend. We get to hear what they're doing and vice versa. It helps strengthen that relationship between the three groups. A lot of people can go to a zone meeting. So we just sort of shattered that old myth that it's only for the zone chair and the president and the secretary of the club. Let's look at the agenda for a zone meeting. It should focus on the club needs. Remember we said The mission statement is to strengthen and support the Lions clubs in that zone. For instance, if every club in the zone just brought in members, please do not have on your subject for the zone meeting how to recruit new members. Why not orientation? Why not involvement? That's what the topic should be at that zone meeting. Ask the question, what's in it for me? But not from you, the zone chair's perspective, but from the club's perspective. After you do the agenda, look at the agenda and say, am I meeting my club's requirements? Am I fulfilling the club's needs with this meeting? The zone chair should then know what in the heck is going on in the clubs. How are they going to fulfill the club's needs if they don't ask? So the ways to find out what the club's needs are is to simply ask them. It's amazing what a phone call might discover. Read the club bulletin or the club web page. If the club has a Facebook page, look at it. Sometimes you can get information what the club needs from the things that aren't there as opposed to what they are doing. Maybe the club is doing all fundraising and no service. And you can see that by reading the bulletin or the web page. Talk to other district officers. Maybe some of those people have already been to the club. Maybe the district governor's already visited. Talk to them. Talk to previous zone chairs. Find out what the clubs need before you hold the zone meeting. We're talking about agendas. Every agenda should have the 3 F's. Those of you that have taken the Lions University course will know what I'm talking about. Fun. We have to have some fun at the zone meeting. This could be something to make the Lions laugh, and it could be a quiz, it could be an icebreaker, a tail twister. No, you can't twist tails here. There's a great ice-breaking program, if you call it that, on the doctorate of the university, Lions University course. It's worth looking at. Some great ice-breaking ideas. We talked earlier about fellowship. That's the second F. Provide time for fellowship. It's a very important component of our Lions meetings. And thirdly is fulfillment. Thursday evening, I'm sure all of you heard Billy Riggs, and he said the purpose of a meeting should not be to be a meeting. And yet a lot of us hold meetings because it's a meeting and we're supposed to hold a meeting. The purpose of a meeting has to be something that will give the Lions who attend it some fulfillment, some take-home stuff. Very, very important component of the agenda. When you're doing the agenda, spend some time putting the times together so you know how long it's going to take for this speaker and that speaker. But of course, tell the speakers how long they have. Before, when you invite them to come to the zone meeting, tell them they have 8 minutes. If they come prepared to be the major guest speaker and want to spend an hour and a half talking to the Lions, it's going to throw your agenda right down the sewer. And remember the golden rule. Even if there are people not at the meeting that you know are coming, you still start on time and end on time. Because if there are some Lions who, I don't know if you have them in your area, but I can tell you, I can name a few Lions that sometimes I'm tempted to say the meeting will start at 5:30 because I know they might be there then by 6. You may have some too, then I notice the head shaking, yeah. So start on time, end on time. Before you finish your agenda, review the previous minutes. Have a look at the previous minutes, both the zone meeting and the cabinet meeting, just so you're not blindsided by somebody putting up their hand and saying, gee, zone chair Dave, what about that project that we talked about at the last zone meeting? Oh, I forgot about that. I meant to do the research. Read the minutes. Be prepared for your zone meeting. I mentioned earlier that the meeting notice is one of the areas that is so important and yet quite often is just ignored. We're all busy, so the meeting notice should be out, the dates and locations at the beginning of the Alliance year, so that we can plan and be ready to attend. You could post them on the district webpage, the district directory. How about doing a zone newsletter early in the year? A new zone newsletter giving all the dates and locations of the upcoming zone meetings. Send an email to each club. Heck, you could even use snail mail. We still have it in Canada, I don't know the rest of the world. Or even a combination of all of these. Just to send the announcement out so the dates are available. The invitation for a specific zone meeting should be sent out about a month in advance at least. Not a week before. The club president's got to take it to the club. How can they if they're not meeting that week? So send out the specific notice at least a month before the meeting date. But don't just leave it at a written notice. Do a personal contact. Pick up the phone. Ask each club president and or secretary or both if they got the notice, if they're coming. This is a great time to get feedback on how that club is doing. It's a good idea a great time to get the idea if the club has any special needs that you need to address on your agenda. It also makes sure that the president and or secretary are aware of the meeting. They can't say, gee, I didn't get a notice about that. The notice that you send out, the specific notice, should include all the details for the meeting. The location, the times, the meal cost, who the speaker will be, and a reminder that every Lion can attend. Are you expecting reports from each club? If so, written? Or are you expecting the club president to give an oral report? Or both? What to cover in the reports? We only need information that's happened since the last zone meeting. We don't need a recap of everything your club has done in the last 100 years. Some of you have heard that too. A good idea to keep the time frame correct on a zone meeting is to have each club simply highlight one key service project or fundraising project that they have done in since the last meeting. Oh, they can submit a written report of everything, and you can copy them and scan them and send them out. So the clubs all know what the other clubs are doing. But maybe just have them make one specific fundraising or service project that they talk about. And please, do not let the club stand up there and say how much money they've donated. If you belong to a small club of 10, 12 members, and you donate $200 to a project, that's probably a significant amount of money. Or you may be located in an area where it's hard to raise funds. And then you get another club with 80 members who do a weekly bingo and pull in a couple of $100,000 a year, and they stand up and say, well, we gave $23,000 to that project. It makes it pretty embarrassing for the other clubs. So try to not have your clubs talk about how much money they donate. Be very clear on the times. Social at 6:30, dinner at 7, and we'll be out of here by 9:15. And as I mentioned before, be very clear to any of your guest speakers how much time has been allotted to them. And remember, for some of the people, this may be their first zone meeting, so maybe a word about the dress code. We don't want them showing up in a blazer, a shirt, and tie when everybody else is just wearing a club golf shirt. Now the key point of the meeting notice. Why should the Lions from that club attend the zone meeting? Instead of, "Hi, President Nancy, it's Zone Chair Dave. I'm just calling to remind you the zone meeting is next Tuesday. How many of you will be coming?" Let's hear the way it should be done.
Hi, President Dave. It's Zone Chair Nan calling. I'm sure you received the zone meeting notice that was sent out a couple of weeks ago, and I'm just following up on that. I don't know if you're aware of it, but there's been a challenge from two of the clubs. We're going to have a wings night, and Baysville and Dorset have challenged each other to see who can do the best wings. So we're going to be meeting at the Baysville Lions Den. Obviously, we want you and your secretary and as many of your Lions as possible to be there, and I need to know by this Sunday just how many will be there. Obviously, we want to have enough wings for everybody. And while I have you on the phone, I just want to double check. Are there any issues or whatnot that you would like brought up at the meeting? Because let me know now and I'll make sure that they're covered. Looking forward to seeing you there. Bye-bye.
She always does things better than I do. But that's the way it should be, shouldn't it? Instead of just saying, "Hey, there's a zone meeting Tuesday night." Promote with your phone call and your invitation why those clubs should attend. Okay, it's her turn now. You get the nicer voice.
Of course, every meeting should have a purpose, and Dave has touched on that. And he also said that Lions International has suggested definitely three meetings, and possibly 4. The first one could focus on service, where you're talking about service projects that the clubs are involved in or giving them new ideas for things that they can do. Perhaps the second one, you could focus on membership. And this isn't just recruitment and retention. It's also what I like to call the care and feeding of the Lions you already have in your club. It's very important to keep them happy and productive. The third could be on leadership. What is it the Lions need to know and learn so that they can get themselves prepared to hold higher office in the club and also the district? And if you choose to hold a 4th meeting, perhaps towards the end of the year, you could focus on the future. It's an opportunity to discuss the transition from the current club officer roster to the new Lions coming in that will be taking over. It's also an opportunity for year-end awards if your zone has contests. I know a lot of zones do. As Dave mentioned, perhaps giving out centennial banner patches and things like that. In the Model District Governors Advisory Committee meetings, which is online, there are terrific outlines for these meetings. Each one is designed to last 45 to 60 minutes, which is, 45 minutes or 60 minutes. You certainly don't want a meeting going any longer than that. So that's the ideal timing. Now, of course, you are not obliged to follow that and use those topics because, as we said before, we want to know what the club's needs are. So you should be tailoring the meetings towards what's going to be meaningful and helpful to them. We all know that there are many, many reasons why Lions do not attend meetings. Nothing of interest for them, they're long, they're boring, perhaps location and timing is wrong, and occasionally it could be the cost. Lions Clubs International did a study, and 80% of the time, the reason given for non-attendance is long, boring meetings. So let's keep that in mind and make sure that we're not planning long, boring meetings. We want zippy, crisp meetings. 10% of the time, the other reasons are location and timing is wrong, and sometimes cost as well. So you have it within your power to ensure that the Lions leaving your meeting leave feeling that those 3 F's have been fulfilled: fun, fellowship, and fulfillment. So plan well. Don't be afraid to step outside of the box. Do it differently. Change is good, and here are a few ideas that can add some zip to your meetings. But remember, don't make change just for the sake of making change. If you're going to change a tradition, make sure that you're replacing it with something that's going to be of interest and value to your Lions. Because you know, we do value our traditions. We are Lions after all. So if you're going to replace a traditional activity, make sure it's something that's bigger and better. How about a breakfast meeting? Have any of you tried breakfast meetings? 1 or 2, yeah. There are occasions, and in some areas, where if people do a lot of shift work, getting out to an evening meeting sometimes is pretty nigh impossible for them. So why not try a Saturday morning breakfast, or maybe even a luncheon meeting? We talked about a wings, well, I didn't say beer before, but a wings and beer night. We are Lions, we do need our libations, don't we? So instead of a traditional meal, perhaps the wings and beer night, and of course we're going to have a throwdown between the 2 clubs. So that's going to add fun and fellowship to our meeting. If cost has been an issue, perhaps try a coffee and dessert only meeting, just for a change, and see how that works. Maybe you'll find that your attendance has improved because there's a less out-of-pocket expense for the attendees. Dining in the dark. Anybody got an idea what that is? A lot of us do function in the dark all the time, I realize, but one of our zone chairs, in conjunction with the local Canadian National Institute for the Blind office, scheduled a dining in the dark meeting, and this was a CNIB initiative. It's educating people to understand and be helpful to blind and visually impaired people when they're eating a meal. How would you feel if suddenly you couldn't see what was on your plate? Pretty scary, wouldn't it be? I know I'd have my food all over the place. So this is what was organized, a dining in the dark. Everybody had a traditional meal on the plate, cutlery, the whole thing. And then your blindfold was put on, and wow, I think it must have been interesting. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend that. But I think it really was a very good educational meeting for the Lions, and it was different. Because it was such a unique thing, she did invite Lions from other zones to participate that evening, so it's something to keep in mind. We talked about perhaps meeting with other zones. If you have a project that's too large for your zone alone, get another zone involved and you work on it together. So obviously have a meeting to discuss that, or you know, some common issues. Occasionally, you will want just a business meeting. Perhaps there are some issues in the zone or even in the district that need to be discussed with presidents and secretaries. So get them together for a business meeting only. Sorry. Getting wound up in papers here. The actual meeting itself, this is where you have many, many options. You are in control of the actual meeting, and you want to make sure that everything is planned down to the nth degree. In the advisory meeting manual, there is a terrific meeting preparation checklist, and there it is up on the screen. There are a lot of things on there to think about. There may be things on there that wouldn't pertain to your meetings, but I think it's good to have a plan, and if you've got this as a starting point, you will ensure that you don't leave important things out. And that's on page 18 of the manual. A lot of things perhaps may not be under your control. Sometimes, you know, the environment in the meeting room or whatever. But you do have control over a lot of issues, the agenda, the speakers, the timing. So make sure that you do it well. The actual meeting itself, Dave mentioned perhaps not holding it on a regular club meeting, but if it turns out that you do, he's given you some cautions there, which I don't think I need to repeat. You're aware that there could be issues having a zone meeting on a club night, so try and make it as smooth as possible. In a situation where I have been, I would say, forced, because it wasn't my option particularly, but it happened, as a courtesy to the host club and president, he or she is the one who should open the meeting and get things underway, look after the business of the club, get it out of the way as quickly as possible, and then turn the meeting over to you. You've had a discussion with your planned speakers beforehand, the amount of time that they have on the agenda. Do remind them again that evening or that day just what the time limits are. It's important that they try and keep within that time frame. And a cardinal rule, of course, has been stated: start on time. If Lions took the time and trouble to arrive in time for the meeting to start on time, then it's our responsibility to make sure that we respect their time and their presence and start on time. The tardy ones will just have to be there, get there when they do and catch up when they can. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody who doesn't make it to a meeting is a slothful lion. There are things that get in the way of getting to meetings on time, and we appreciate that. But you know and I know the same faces turn up late every time, so I am not going to reward those people by disrespecting the time and effort that the other Lions took to get there. I like to establish protocol at the beginning of the meeting, which is important. Then it doesn't have to be repeated by every single speaker who stands up and drones through that long list. Because of his own meeting, you do have a lot of people who need to be recognized. I like to use head table cards as well. You know everybody who's going to be there, because obviously you are the zone chair and you invited most of them. But not everybody in the body of the audience will, so it gives them an opportunity to put names and faces together. It's also helpful for the guests to know exactly where they're going to sit, whether their spouse or partner is to be sitting at the head table or otherwise. So just a little thing that I think helps. If you're going to hold a draw to help cover the cost of complimentary meals, etc., Dave has said, do make sure that the host club, if you're in a meeting night, understands that they're not going to be participating in any of those funds. You can make the draw just a plain old 50-50, or you can have 2 or 3 draws depending on the size of the pot. Maybe a prize could be registration paid at the upcoming district convention. One thing we did at my spring zone meeting, we had some spring plants on the table for decorations, so we had a draw. Everybody went home with a hyacinth or a tulip or something like that. Now, if you have a tail twister, and I think a lot of us do because that's part of the fun and enjoyment of the meeting, perhaps the club could share in the tail twister money. Just a thought. The actual meeting itself. Quite often, you're going to be having a served meal or a buffet meal, and there are occasions when you want the meal at a particular time and it's not ready. And I've seen this time and again, and I'm sure you have. Everybody sits there. Okay, so we're carrying on with fellowship time, but we're also into our meeting time. So why not start the meeting while we're waiting for the buffet to be prepared or the meal to arrive? We started doing this in my club actually a couple of years ago because where we're meeting, it's a restaurant and they have other patrons in the other rooms to look after. So we start the meeting and carry on for as much of that as we can until the food arrives. And it's working quite well, so you might consider that as well. Obviously follow your agenda. When you get to the meeting and to the agenda, make sure that there are well, if you want, okay, brain, get back in gear. You should ask for additions to the agenda, and then after the agenda is adopted, that's it. You want to stay on time, you want to start on time, you want to end on time. It's very important that we do that. An evaluation, I think, is a very important thing to do at the end of any meeting or presentation. You're going to be evaluating us at the end of this. So why not, at the end of a zone meeting, have the participants actually do an evaluation of the meeting and have them handed in to you. It's amazing what you will pick up from the comments that are on that. There is a meeting evaluation form in the manual that we talked about. So you'll get some good ideas for how things went well, things that could have improved, maybe ideas for other meetings. And you're probably going to get some, we hope, constructive criticism, but you might get some that you don't feel is so constructive after all. Take it in the spirit in which the Lions offered it to you. They want you to succeed. They're trying to help you. So look at those comments and learn from them. The meeting is over, but your job is not done. If you have promised somebody that you're going to get them some information or do something, make sure you do it. My guideline is, if at all possible, within a couple of days or so after the meeting. But if that doesn't work, because sometimes it does take more time to get the information or get the task completed, get in touch with the person, let them know you're working on it, you haven't forgotten them, and try and give them another date as to when you'll be able to get back to them. Obviously, it's important to thank the people who came, the presidents, the secretaries, your presenters. And most of all, the host club for giving up a meeting night if it was on their meeting night. These are very important things to do, and my deadline there is to do it the next morning. Because if I don't do it the next morning, I get busy. And if I forget, then I forget I've forgotten to do it. So next morning, do it. You have a secretary for your meeting. Ask the secretary if he or she could please have the minutes to you within 2 to 3 days of the meeting. You want to vet them to make sure that they're correct, and then you get them distributed to everybody, ASAP. If there is a meeting report that goes into your district governor's team, again, make sure that you complete that the next morning. I am sure every club and every district has some reporting requirements, so make sure you don't overlook it. If you're fortunate enough to get rules of audit, make sure you do your expense report at the same time. In our multiple, we do get mileage for zone meetings, and if you don't have a zone meeting report with your expense report, you don't get paid. It's a very good incentive, believe me. So, a few things to remember. You are setting the example to the Lions there, so make sure that you're a professional in everything that you do. Try not to lecture. Try and make your meetings as interactive as possible. Ask questions, ask for opinions, and don't be afraid to get involved in discussion. That's what makes the meetings worthwhile and vibrant. We talked about the agenda. Make sure it's a slim, good agenda. Don't try and put 10 pounds of potatoes into a 5-pound bag. It just ain't going to work. Stand up and take control. Stand when you speak, sit down while others are speaking. There's nothing more frustrating than giving a report and somebody is standing there at your shoulder. It drives me insane, and I'm sure it does most people, so. Stand to take control. Dave talked about long-winded speakers. Don't be afraid to stand up and let them know. You can let them go over a minute or so, but you know, you have a timeline, stand up to shut them down. It's not being rude. Actually, they're the ones who are being rude. Be clear on the action items. Be clear on who's going to do it and what the target date for completion is, and that applies to you and others as well. Effective zone meetings just don't happen on their own. They happen because of careful, thoughtful planning by you, the zone chair. Do you remember what our zone meeting mission statement was? You were listening. Wonderful. To strengthen and support the Lions clubs in the zone. That is your goal for every zone meeting. And that is our takeaway for you today. The references are all readily available to you on the Lions Club International website and the Lions Club University. The district, under the district governance, the zone and region chairperson section, you've got the Model District Governor's Advisory Committee Meetings Manual. There's a mouthful. We used also the Zone Chairperson Manual, and there are 4 workbooks on there for zone chairs. There are also modules that you can work online. And then, of course, Lions University. How many of you are actually involved in Lions U? Terrific. How many are graduating today? Wonderful. Quickly, back. Our objectives, and I will summarize quickly. Purposes, I think we got that. When to hold meetings, how many? Those who can attend, creating the agenda, talked about our meeting notice. We hope we've given you some ideas for improvement. Also, conducting the meetings, the actions you take post-meeting, and the references. Did we do it?
Yes.
I'm excited. Okay, I think we have some time for questions. So, International Director Bob, in charge of the microphone. We'll try and do this so you're not zipping back and forth. Questions, comments?
This will be a comment. I'm a district governor, and I found it quite annoying that my zone chairs scheduled their zone meetings without looking at my schedule that was published in the directory and out before I went to Japan. And then when I brought it to their attention, it was like, oh, well, that's the best night for me.
Yes, I'm sure that has happened to a lot of people. A good way to overcome that is right at the beginning of the year, you give them your schedule, and that's it. You're there, and your vice governors get first pick on meeting nights. We have another one here.
Yes, just one comment on the club reports. I like for my clubs to tell a little bit about what they've done since the last meeting, but I want them to tell me what upcoming things they have, because I want to support them and I want the other clubs close to them to support their projects. And we can't do it if we don't know about it.
Very good point. Thank you for that.
Kathy from Illinois. I am a zone chairman, and we do combine 2 zones, so 1 and 2, and sometimes we will have everybody tell about what they do, but we've had those that tell every penny they give. So, like $50 to lead your dog and $100 there and whatever, but that gets kind of annoying for some people. So we've had to, at times, just say, no reports tonight.
A way around that is to have them give a written report, and then sometimes you can just make a comment on, oh, I see that club so-and-so did this or whatever. So maybe you can pinpoint things, bring it up that way.
Okay, I'm a regional zone. I didn't know anything about it. I'm a new Lion. Just a few few years old. But to follow up with you, you have a booklet that I knew nothing about. Just for example, the only reason why I may know a little bit more is because I dove in being a lion. That was the first thing that I wrote on my note, and I put on here, find out the dates to the district meeting. And the only reason why I knew that is because my second year I was a cabinet secretary. And so I think that if more information that a regional chairperson gets, it really helps us out. And not everyone has the opportunity of coming to a USA Canada forum.
Thank you. And well, Bob is certainly getting his exercise this morning.
Hi, I'm a zone chair, and we have 2 zones in our city, consisting of 11 clubs. And what we started doing last year was doing joint projects together. Now, this year, we are actually holding our zone meetings jointly. We are putting up a Facebook for our city, showing each one of the clubs, and we will have the activities listed there. And then we're supporting each other doing the different projects, because we have several clubs that have elderly members. They've got the money, but they don't have the manpower to put the projects on. So we are doing a lot of joint things together. We've also done on the meetings, we are collecting food as part of the admission price for the dinner, and making that a donation to the food bank. And then the raffle, the 50-50 raffle, goes to also the food bank.
That's great. So you've got fun, fellowship, and service, and working with other zones. That is great.
I'm a past district governor and currently the GLT district leader. I'm going to use your presentation, if you'll let me, for a joint district zone training session. My experience as zone chair, and I don't know about some of your incoming zone chairs, I was thrown into the zone chair. We never had any training for zone chairs. And probably a lot of the zone chairs that aren't at this forum probably won't have any training either. You get thrown into position and they say, go have 3 meetings. And then they do it the same way. We do it the same way we've always done. The clubs get up and brag about how great they are, and we all go home, and a lot of folks say, that's kind of boring, but that's my experience. But anyway, I'm going to use your information to try to train zone chairs in 2 districts, so we're 2 districts coming together. Thank you.
Well, International realizes how important this training is, and the Leadership Division is making funds available for this type of training. Goes to the districts. You have to apply for it. It's not automatic, but I mean, zone chair is the first level on the rung upwards. It's important that you have good grounding and training to begin with. I've got time for one more question, and that will be it, I think.
This is a comment. I'm a zone chair this year. We've already had our first meeting at the end of August, and I sent out homework to all the presidents and secretaries. I asked them, what is the best thing about your club? What do you do really, really well? And what do you do really, really badly? Or what do you need help with? And that was our dinner discussion. And all we did was we had pizza and soda at the fire station in the community room. It was $5 a piece. We had, for 6 clubs, we had 18 people attend.
Excellent. Good for you. Very innovative. I think that is just about got us right on time. On behalf of Dave and myself, a great big thank you for being here this morning. It was really nice working with you, and thank you for listening to some of the ideas that we shared with you. We hope that we will be helpful to you. Director Bob, thank you so much. It has been a real pleasure working with you. And my goodness, you're athletic and back and forth. And you have some closing remarks, obviously.
Didn't they do a nice job, folks? Another round of applause. If you've got more questions, Nancy has promised that Dave will stay here for another hour to answer any questions you may have. Other than that, she's going with me for a beer. Other than that, if you have not pokeyed this, come on up, put your pokey on it. Please, please, please do your evaluations. Remember, athletic, running back and forth. Any questions, just come up, let us know. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you.